Welcome to the Growth Series podcast, where we explore how AI is reshaping industries and accelerating innovation. I'm your host, Josh Jackson. At Red Letter AI, we help businesses scale their revenue, generate consistent and predictable leads, and streamline systems so it feels like you have 100 sales reps, even if you only have a couple. So if you're ready to take your business to the next level, you're in the right place. If you'd like a free growth consultation, drop the word growth in the comments below. Well, today my guest is Andrew Sloss, a professional coach who helps people break free from toxic work environments and rediscover their confidence, purpose, and professional identity. After facing the same challenges himself, Andrew built a coaching practice dedicated to helping others make career transitions that align with who they are and what they value. His mission is simple but powerful: to remind people that happiness and fulfillment at work aren't just possible, they're essential. Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Josh. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your story, your background, for all those people that don't know who you are.
Sure. Happy to give a little bit of background. Grew up originally in the Midwest. I won't take you all the way back to that, but I went to law school. Had always dreamed about being an attorney. Ended up, I'm graduated, passed the bar, started practicing law. Found out pretty quickly I didn't really like practicing the law, which was a little bit of a concern given how much money I had taken out to get my law degree.
Right.
Struggled practicing for a number of years. It was just never super fulfilling for a lot of different reasons, and ended up getting into a different area of corporate tax consulting, things like that. Really fell in love with that sort of work. It was really right in line with my law background and some of the experiences that I had with my life. Really enjoy it. But over the course of that part of my career, I've unfortunately been in some very toxic workplaces, and I've gone through probably back maybe 2016, 2017, I went through a very long period of unemployment. It was by far the longest period of unemployment I ever had. First time I ever struggled with even getting interviews. And a friend suggested I hire a career coach, and I was skeptical, but I did it because I was desperate, honestly, at that point, and changed my life. That career coach happens to be the career coach who then mentored me as a career coach. And in that process, like, one of the things I really wanted to do was to help people who either are currently in a toxic work environment or have been in a toxic work environment and are struggling with some of the things that come out of that environment. Because I found that when I was in that position, there wasn't a lot of people that could help me. And so I want to be someone who can help others understand that what they're going through might be somewhat normal, but isn't okay.
Yeah. So I hear the term, we all hear the term, and we use the term toxic work environment a lot these days, right? So what does that mean to you, and what kind of challenges are people typically having when they come to you for help?
Oh, that's a very good question. That's probably worth a completely separate podcast, just that question alone, right? But I think, it does get thrown around a lot. So, if your boss gets mad at you because you made a mistake, that's not a toxic work environment. You made a mistake and your boss yelled at you. Maybe they shouldn't yell at you, but that's not a toxic work environment. We're talking about situations where people are actively undermining you for no good reason, just because they're trying to get ahead or because they just don't like you. That's kind of more on the lower end, but then on the higher end, you're talking about sexual harassment based on your skin color, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, all those things that make your workplace really hard. But one of the things that's very common, regardless of where you fall, if you call it a toxicity spectrum, there's some common themes that come out of that when you experience that. And one of the biggest ones is you tend to lose confidence in your ability to do your job. And it doesn't matter. I coach people who are just a couple years into their career and people who've been in their career for 30 years. That is one of the most common themes that happen is you get in this toxic work environment, you think it's your fault, and you're obviously, a lot of times your work product suffers because of it, because of the stress and the strain and the emotional and mental toll it takes on you, and you start to lose confidence. And that's one of the biggest things that I really work with my clients on. And one of the things I love about this part of what I do is I meet so many talented, intelligent, amazing people that don't realize how talented and amazing that they are. And so that's one of the biggest things that we really work on is regaining that self-confidence. Look at all these things you've done over your career. You should be at a place that you're celebrated and that you enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious, like when people first come to you, what do they think their problem is? and what do you usually discover that's really holding them back?
Oh, I mean, it's kind of twofold. I mean, there's a lot of times people will come to me and they don't even realize that they're in that kind of work environment. Sometimes they have just been so um, programmed. They've been in it so long, they just think that that is the way that it is, and that's the way that every workplace is, and that's just normal for them. And so being able to kind of have someone to bounce that off of and say, "Hey, what you're experiencing isn't acceptable and isn't normal, isn't something you should be willing to accept in your workplace, given how much time we spend in the workplace." So a lot of times it's just some people don't realize it. And so that's a very eye-opening moment for them. And then others do realize it and they're like, I have to get out of here. How can I get out of here? Because I don't know if I can take literally one more day. I don't know if I can do it. And so a lot of it is like, there is a certain amount of therapy that goes on. I mean, every career coach will tell you, regardless of what their niche is, that there is some level of just as a therapist in this role, because you want to be encouraging, you want to help them understand how to get to where they want to be. But ultimately, it's really unpacking their experience and explain to them, hey, it's not normal that your boss is calling you on Saturday morning at 7 a.m. to tell you to do something. Like, that's not normal. That's not
Right.
acceptable in most cases. And if that, you need to put up some more boundaries. And so some of that. So it varies quite a bit, but I mean, that's kind of basically how it starts.
Yeah. It's funny you talk about the work environment, and I always forget that I have this in front of me. I have this placard in front of me that says, it talks about what a growth environment is, and it has 10 of them. I mean, I'm lucky. Kind of lucky. I work from home, and sometimes my boss is pretty hard on me, me, right? But, I know we talked previously, and, I've heard the word burnout come up, and I know there's a lot of conversation around burnout. So how does that factor into this? Burnout, mental health, leadership accountability. How does that kind of work in with a toxic work environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it. And there's a certain, I mean, there's certain jobs and there's certain times when you are gonna, if you're working in corporate where you just have long hours, but it's really those jobs where it's like it's always long hours. Like there's never a non 60-hour work week, or you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so great that it's only great I'm working 55 hours this week. I mean, I have clients that are like, who say that to me, like, oh, I'm only working 55 hours. I'm like, when was the last time you worked 40 hours? Like, I don't remember.
Right.
And so I think, and part of that, and really a lot of what I do in the career coaching space is, you have to set boundaries too, right? Like, I mean, you have to live a lot. You have to live your life. There's things that you enjoy doing outside of work, I would hope. And so the more, the more burned out you get, the more subjective you can be to either being the toxic person in the environment, honestly, or just being open to it because you're just trying to get through your day. You're just trying to get through these next 12 hours at your job. And, you don't have time to like deal with the personality issues you have at work because you're so busy with the work
Mm-hmm.
that you sometimes just compromise. Normally you would never let your best friend treat you that way or say those things about you without fighting them or having a conversation with them. But at work, you're like, I'm just too busy. Here comes Kevin. I'm just going to have to put up with Kevin for the next 5 minutes and then get back to work. So burnout plays a role because you just don't have enough time to address it properly.
Yeah, not enough bandwidth, right?
Yes,
So,
100%.
so why do you think unhealthy workplaces are so common, and what can companies do better?
Gosh, that's a whole other
I know it's
podcast
another
series.
podcast, right?
Gosh.
So we're just laying seeds for future
I
podcasts. That's
I
all.
I think, I mean, that's definitely, it's really multifaceted, right? I think
Yeah.
sometimes, especially in a smaller organization that's like that, they don't have the individuals and the tools in place to address it properly. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It definitely happens in larger organizations too. But the large ones, a smaller one, they probably don't have an HR function, or the HR function might be the owner's wife, nephew, kid, whatever. So they're not really truly an HR function. So there's some of that. There just isn't the infrastructure within the company to be able to address it. So if there is, even if just a personality conflict and not necessarily like a toxic situation, there isn't enough people in the organization to be like, hey, we need to address this. We want to keep Andrew. We want to keep Josh. We have to figure out a way to make them work together. Sometimes just like one of them will quit. A lot of times, well, one of them will quit eventually. So we're just going to wait for that to happen, which isn't good because it definitely will spill over to other people at the company. Um, so I think, one of the most important things that a company can do is to make sure that they have some sort of, space where there is some sort of way that if there are disagreements between coworkers, that there is some sort of, I mean, this sounds more formal than it means, but some sort of mediation policy in place, like, hey, Josh and Andrew aren't getting along. We're going to bring in Rich over here, and Rich is going to sit down in a room with these two so they can talk it out, figure out what the issues are, and try to come to a resolution so they can understand one another better, and then determine whether can they continue to work, can they work together any longer, or do we need to figure out a way to, put up some sort of wall so that they can still both be here because they're good contributors to the company, but we want to keep them. But the problem is having those resources, and some even large companies have a hard time with those resources. But I think we've seen a lot of changes especially since COVID, with more focus on trying to put resources into play for mental health, for burnout, things like that. But at the same time, companies have to not just say they have them and then put them in a drawer somewhere. They have to break them out every once in a while and show their employees that not only do they have them, but they'll use them for what their purpose is. And the purpose is to keep people, make people productive for the benefit of their people, but also for the benefit of the company.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like leadership to me, right?
Yes, 100%.
Groundbreaking thoughts here, having positive leadership and bringing people together and finding commonality. Oh my goodness. Like, you're right. Companies need to do that better, and they really do. So like when I hear toxic, right, I hear toxic relationships. I mean, that's what most people probably equate this to. And I know several people that have been in toxic relationships, and they didn't realize they're in a toxic relationship until they got out of it. So if I'm listening to this podcast right now, how do I know? What are the signs that I'm in a toxic environment? Like, I know I'm unhappy, but maybe I don't realize why I'm unhappy. It's like, what are those things that these are the indicators?
I mean, one thing that I work on a lot with people that are my clients is like, what are you at your core? Like, what are the things that you value? Like, and it doesn't matter to me what they are, but what are the values that you have inside you that make you who you are? And once you identify what those values are, do you feel like you can bring those values to work, or do you have to leave them at the door? And if you feel like you have to leave them at the door and you can't be yourself at work, that's probably a start that there might be something not right at work, right? So are you not able to express yourself? Are you not able to stand up for yourself? Are you not able to express your own ideas at work without fear that someone's going to belittle you, condemn you, maybe even pull you into an office later and yell at you for speaking up at a meeting? I mean, those are things that you need to start, like, maybe it might just be an unhealthy work thing. It might not be all the way to toxic, but maybe it just isn't healthy if you can't bring yourself to work. And like I said earlier, we spend way too much time at work to not be able to bring our authentic selves to the job. So that's like the first thing. But even just one thing that I didn't realize was happening to me when I was in toxic work environments was that I wasn't paying attention to kind of what was happening inside of my body. And I started to notice that when certain people, and there was one particular person, would be on a call with me, whether it was me and him, or me and him and a bunch of people, or if he would call me on Teams, the minute I knew I was going to have to interact with him, I would start to sweat, and I'd start to not have a panic attack, but just like, oh my gosh, what are we going to talk about? And for a long time, I just thought, oh, that's just Andrew. I'm not prone to anxiety, but I'm like, I'm just having some anxiousness around this. And he was a leader in the company. I use leader loosely, but he was a leader in the company. But I finally realized that internal reaction, that feeling, the sweating, the anxiety, that isn't how you should feel about anybody you work with, in my opinion. And if you feel that way, that's not good for you, for your mental health, for your emotional, physical well-being. And you need to pay attention to that. You really do. Because if you don't pay attention to it, and we'll talk about this more, but if you don't pay attention to those for yourself, no one else is going to pay attention to it either. So you have to know what that is inside of you.
Yeah, definitely have to take personal responsibility. Nobody else is going to take care of it. And it's funny, like I always tell people too, and this might be, I'm not sure if this come across harsh, but I think it's the truth, is that you can't complain. I tell people you can't complain about the things that you allow. And if you're allowing it and you're allowing it, and you complain about it, but don't do anything about it, that goes back to personal responsibility.
Yep. I mean, I think to your point, I mean, it's important that, and again, it's everyone's comfort level different. It's also harder when you're younger in your career to confront someone because they might be, 10 years or more your senior, and you don't want to lose your job.
Yeah.
But you don't want to go to HR either. And maybe we'll talk about that later, but HR is not your friend in those situations. But at some point you have to try to have the courage to be like, hey, I need to talk to you about what you said because what you said made me feel this way. And the other thing is that, I mean, there are some people and I was this way, and I still am this way if you a little bit if you talk to my wife, but I say things that I don't think sound a certain way, but definitely sound a
Yes.
certain way because I'll hear myself on a recording or whatever, like, oh, that sounded really harsh. And it was never
Yeah.
meant that way. But if you don't
Right.
tell me that it came across that way, I won't even put two and two together. So there'll be some cases where you might talk to someone and they'll be like, oh, I didn't realize it, and they'll fix it. And then you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about it again. But it's definitely important. You have to stand up for yourself, stick up for yourself, advocate for yourself, all those things.
I agree. I would love to hear maybe an example of someone that you've helped. Obviously, don't include names, don't include companies, don't even need to include the profession. We want to keep this very anonymous, but I'd love to hear like a real life example of someone that you've worked with. Like where were they at before, what happened, and where are they at now?
Yeah. So I mean, there was one client I was working with, the professional services industry, and they were working for, a relatively small firm, less than 100 employees, very, very high producer, multiple degrees. So they're very educated, very smart, very good at their job. But they were also they were a strong leader. And what their experience was at the job that they had when I was working with them was that the co-owner of the company was used to kind of bullying people around and like to hire people that they felt didn't have that strong personality. But somehow my client had gotten in there and gotten a job and was a strong leader, was a strong advocate for herself. And this co-owner of the company didn't like that and actively plotted against her in so many different ways
Mm,
to try to, make her do bad work, make her want to quit, all these things. But she kept sticking up for herself. And this was a situation where they didn't have a true HR function. So there wasn't, not that you should go to HR in that situation, but there wasn't any sort of mediation available. And so, but when she first came to me, she was like, I don't understand why on Sundays I just hate, like I have all this anxiety, and she couldn't figure out why she had this anxiety. She couldn't figure out why she dreaded having to go in. Like this person was in the office all the time, but she didn't have to go in all the time. Why she always felt that way when she had to go into the office. Like she could never put two and two together. And so we went through some different exercises to say, when do you feel that way? When do you don't? And she didn't even really pick up on the fact that it was this one person that was making her feel this way. And so we went through a number of exercises there's a number of different things you can do to try to, when you have someone who's doing that to you in the job, to try to like put some distance and put some boundaries between you and that person. And that
hmm
kind of, that helped her while we tried to get her out of that situation. So, so part of what I do, to your point, is I work with them when they're in the situation to minimize that impact. And then I worked very hard with them to try to get them the heck out of there so that they can get into a place that is healthier and is better for them professionally. And so we were able to do that. We were able to work on her resume, get her LinkedIn profile, work on some interview skills because she hadn't interviewed in quite a while. And, while we worked together, she didn't get a new job, but within 2 or 3 months of us working together, she had gotten a new job, had gotten out of that place. And, last time I spoke with her, she's doing very well.
That's awesome. I mean, it sounds like you've built a really great business, and I love the work that you're doing. I love these stories, and I think that's definitely something that you don't think about a lot until you're in it. And you're like, what do I do next? Like, who do I turn to? Don't go to HR. Who do I turn to? Who do I ask for help? So, like, for you, what's been the most rewarding part of this journey so far?
Oh, I mean, any career coach who loves what they do will tell you the best thing is when your client lands a new job. Like there is no better feeling than when they call you, and especially because most of the time, they're going through that final interview stage and they're just waiting to hear about the job offer. When they call you or they text you or they email you and they tell you get the job, like there is very few better feelings than that, to know that you've played a small role in helping them accomplish a goal that they've set for themselves. That is by far the best thing. Second thing would be, I mean, when they are in a toxic work environment, just helping them manage all of the excess that comes with that and helping them understand that it's not their fault. They're good at what they do. They just need to find a better place to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, delivering the benefit for people is by far like why we do what we do, right? But shifting focus to talk about you and your business, what does the next 12 months look like for you? And what would the word success mean in 12 months from now if we were talking?
Oh, I mean, that's such a great question. And I think especially for as a coach, like there's different ways to measure. Like I love helping people so much. That's why I originally wanted to be an attorney, was to help people. And so, you know, I love being able to help people. So I mean, one thing that I measure success not just by dollars and cents, but also by the number of people that I help. There are some,
They're very,
especially
they correlate very well together, right? They go right together.
100%. And, I do a fair amount of this work, pro bono. Um, Here, especially, I'm in the DC area. I've worked, recently, pro bono with some furloughed federal employees that have been let go or have kind of hanging out there in the wind. That's also very rewarding because, they're in a very just bad, they're not in a toxic work environment, but they just all of a sudden have lost their job. And so, I really enjoy that because they have a sense of that there's something else out there, that they're going to find another job, that they don't have to feel so alone. So that's really great. So it's definitely measured both by the number of people that I can help over the year, and I'm still just on this journey. So I don't try to measure it too much by dollars and cents, but I'm about halfway to getting my, right now I'm a senior professional career coach. The next step for me is a master professional career coach. And you only get that designation by working so many hours with clients, by doing learning development things. So I'm about halfway there. So it'd be a stretch to be able to complete that by the end of 2026, but it is my goal to get there, to go from the SPCC to the MPCC designation.
Wow. Okay. So then what do you think that one major roadblock is that would help, if we move that out of the way, that would get you to that designation faster? Obviously, you need to talk to more people, need more clients. So what's that one thing that if you removed that, you could get to that designation quicker?
Well, if people just showed up outside my door every day to say they needed career coaching, that would be.
Now, that's a good question. Do you only is it only one-on-one, or do you do group coaching too?
I haven't done group coaching yet. I would love to be that busy to be able to offer group coaching. It just hasn't been there. I know when I worked with my career coach, for part of the time that I worked with her, I was part of one of her group cohort coaching that she had done.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had to do it myself. I hope that I would like it as much as the one-on-one stuff, but the one-on-one stuff really, I really enjoy it. But obviously, if you get to a point where you have so much business or so many clients, and you have to kind of switch to that model, which would be great. But for right now, it's mostly just primarily one-on-one.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I just have two more questions to ask you. I always love ending podcasts with asking you personally two questions. One is, what's the best piece of business advice you have ever received?
The best piece of business advice I ever received, I think my dad owned his own business for a long time, and he passed away not that long ago. So I apologize. I'm getting a little emotional about it. It's coming up on the 1-year anniversary, but my dad was just such a wonderful people person. And he had told me that if you can make people happy, whether that's through the work you're doing or just by being a kind person, you will always have business. And I haven't always been that way, but I try to live up to that as much as I can. And I would say that when I've been able to be that way and be that kind of person, he has been absolutely 100% right.
That's awesome. I would agree with that 100%. And then my second to last question is, if you're talking to your younger self, 13, 18 years old, what would you tell them?
Man, we've kind of already talked about it, but one thing I would say is, I might have two things. I'm sorry, Josh, but one, you definitely have to be your own advocate. No matter what you do in your career, if you don't advocate for yourself and fight for yourself, no one cares as much about you as you do. No one cares as much about your family as you do. No one cares about your career as much as you do. I don't care what anyone tells you. You are. And so if you don't fight for yourself and advocate for yourself and stand up for yourself, no one else is going to do it for you. So make sure that you're not afraid to do that. Even as a young professional, you might have to find a little different way to do it by helping with a mentor that works with you, but definitely want to advocate for yourself 100%. And the second thing I would say is, don't care about other people's opinions of you, because their opinions don't matter.
Amen. They ain't paying your bills.
They are not. They are not. I think Aaron
Such
Rodgers
great advice.
said something along the lines like, the only people's opinions that should matter are people that you take advice from. And even then, be careful who you take advice from.
Right. The older I get, the smaller my circle gets.
Yep. 100%.
Well, those are both fantastic. All three of those are absolute gold nuggets, and I would endorse every single one of them. So lastly, please tell people how they can get a hold of you. If they want to know why they shouldn't talk to HR, or they have all these other questions, they need to contact you. How can they do that?
Sure. Well, you can certainly find me on LinkedIn. Andrew C. Sloss. If you just look up Andrew C. Sloss, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on all the socials. That's Sloss underscore career underscore coaching. That's Sloss underscore career underscore coaching on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I'm all over those. You can find me there. You can also email me at Andrew at slossconsulting.com. Those are the best ways to get in touch with me.
That's awesome. We will have all of those links down in the description below as well. Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Yes, thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.